You did it.
All right, we're live. Yay!
Congratulations.
Thank you for joining us, and thank you so much for your patience. I had a microphone that I thought was going to fix my sound problems, and it caused more sound problems. So we're live. We figured it out, and we're here. Hopefully, you guys are still here with us. Yay! Thank you,
Hi,
guys.
everybody.
So
Hello, everyone.
let's go ahead and get introductions out of the way so that everybody knows who's talking. I'll go ahead and start, and then I'll let you guys introduce yourself.
Sounds good.
I'm Kammi from Flash University. I have been a writer since I discovered Emily Dickinson. I grew up in a very interesting home. If you've ever read Glass Castle, my sister said it sounded exactly like our home life, and so I refused to read it. Categorically refused to read it. So when I read Emily Dickinson and Edgar Allan Poe, I said, oh my goodness, I can do this. I can share my inner world with other people, and they can hear me and experience what I'm experiencing. I'm in. And I have been in ever since, and writing, and I'm a voracious reader. My first loves are poetry and fantasy, but I am a bibliophile and will read almost anything with words. So, Wade, would you introduce yourself next?
Sure. My name is Wade Bradford, and I write a lot of different stuff, but I mainly focus on writing books for children, picture books, middle grade novels. Those are my specialties. And I also I enjoy writing plays. And those are the main genres, but I sometimes dabble outside of that. I like comic books and graphic novels, so I like trying to write scripts for that as well. And every once in a while, I will write something that's, contemporary and maybe in the thriller genre or something that's more adult. But mainly, I like children's literature.
Awesome. Patricia?
I'm Patricia Bates. I am a writer with two pen names. I write in a variety of subgenres in the romance genre, paranormal, contemporary, romantic suspense. And I have been in the industry for 12 years now. And I'm so excited to be here.
Awesome. And I'm thrilled to have these two fantastic writers with me. And if you'll notice, we have a very broad range of experience between the three of us. And so I'm excited for that as well, because then that gives you a broad experience of different types of agents, different types of editors, different types of readers, really gives you a broad scope of mistakes or tweaks or things that are universal. We all make these certain types of mistakes, and we all have to make these certain types of tweaks to our writing to make them fit what editors, agents, and readers want to pick up. So I'm really excited. I'm seeing some comments coming up, and I'm curious what you guys write. So tell me what your genres are, and tell me how long you've been writing. I'm excited to see. Looking. Let's see. I see a lot of hellos. Y'all rock. Ooh, Carolyn, you're so sweet. Thank you. Okay, well, we have a couple fantastic opportunities for you guys. On my website, if you want to go and check it out, I actually have 17 common reasons why manuscripts and queries are rejected. Because of time, we can't discuss them all here. So I've actually made a document for you guys that is free, and it will be free probably just for the live stream, but we'll see how much I love you by the end to see how long I'm going to leave it up live or leave it for free. But and then also I decided to do a huge sale on my other things, which are things like how to write masterful characters or how to figure out when to show versus tell, things like that. And so everything on my website is 60% off. And then Patricia, you had something exciting to share for sure. What was that?
Yes. So at the end of the live stream, if everyone who is participating, who's viewing, please leave your genre, what you write, how long you've been writing, because I'm actually going to be giving away a free ebook cover. I have a bunch of pre-made. It is romance, of course, but I am happy to customize it for you. So if I know what the genre is, I can kind of mix and match and hopefully get you a cover that matches your story. I'm also going to be offering 5 templates for ads for social media promotion of your books.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That is a huge freebie, a huge giveaway. So if there's nothing else, let's just go ahead and jump right in. Is there anything else you guys want to say before we do that?
No? I hope everyone has brought a notepad and pen or pencil.
I have my notepad.
Yeah. Good. Wade needs one too. He's being a good example for the rest of us.
I always have a journal or a yellow pad handy.
Oh, look at you. I just learned from you guys. I was so busy trying to figure out why nobody could hear me. So I didn't bring my notebook there, guys. That example. So let's go ahead and jump in. So the 5 common reasons manuscripts are rejected. Let's go ahead and start with number 1. And this one is going to be a given, and we're going to start with it because it is more of a given. So the query is the first thing that an agent or an editor sees, right? And so you have to put your best foot forward. It is almost more essential that your query is put together properly than almost your manuscript. Oh, did I say that? That's probably, maybe that's not true, but to me, it's the first insight. And so it's kind of like a first date. You really want someone to see your best side, because if they see your worst side first, they're gonna be like, this is what I'm seeing, what's next, you know? And so you really got to put your best foot forward. So what are some common mistakes with queries that you two have seen or heard from other writers?
The biggest one, I think, is that they're trying to give too much information in the query or not enough. So they, and this is something that is quite common amongst editors, publishers, agents. You really only have 16 lines to make an impression. So having the bare bones, your main points in a paragraph, your skill set, and a little bit of information about your book in your query, 3 paragraphs max is what you need. You want to keep it really tight, really slimmed down, but you want to give enough information that the editor, the agent who's looking at it, or even the publisher that's looking at it can go, hey, this sounds really exciting. And this is a person who's got the skill set that we're looking for.
Absolutely. Wade, what do you think? Let me see.
I have a variety of feelings about query letters and our conception of query letters and our emphasis on query letters. And so I think one of the mistakes to make is the idea that the query letter is the only way to get into in front of gatekeepers. If we think of agents and editors as gatekeepers. And so I think one of the mistakes we can make is to think that the query letter is the only first step to getting your foot in the door. And so the first thing I want to say, I guess, is that query letters are important and they're a skill you should develop. And books like the Writer's Market Guide, 2020 Writer's Market Guide, the opening chapters always, even if you get an old like Writer's Market Guide from the 90s, the opening chapters always have these examples of what the good and what the bad query letter. So that's a good skill to learn. However, a lot of people, I think they write query letters, they send them off, and they don't get any response, or they just get template rejections. And I think that's because it's for a lot of reasons, but it's wrong to just approach the business world writing that way. if I write a novel and then I send out 100 query letters and I don't research really who I'm sending, I'm just blindly sending them out.
Yeah.
That's really a waste of my time and their time. So it's much better, I think, to know. Basically, editors, probably not even editors looking at your query letter, probably like an intern or something like that. So if you want that query letter to get to the person that can say yes, or at least get it on the way, then you want to really know who you're sending it to and try to get to know that person. And so that might be going to conferences and meeting people or listening to people, or might be watching like an editor on a YouTube channel. Editors and agents are humans. And so if you send a query letter, then obviously the query letter, you have to have a good story. You have to have a good novel. But then you want to have, you want to be able to connect with your reader in a way that's not too formal or informal, so that they like your voice. They want to read a synopsis, if you even want to call it that, a blurb, something that's so good that it feels like it's already on the paperback jacket or the jacket of the hardcover, so that they're excited about the story. And then they probably want to know that you know what kind of books are published here, or what this agent has sold before, and that you admire that agent or editor's work because it's a nice bump. I'll give you a quick example of something you shouldn't do. Like, you shouldn't go for the obvious. So if you're writing to somebody, an agent that had a best-selling novel like Harry Potter or something like that, or an editor that sold the Harry Potter books, they already know that that's a success. But what they're kind of interested in, do you know their work so well that you know something that they were passionate about, and they did, that they put their heart and soul into that, and you've been following them. So you want the query letter to present an awareness of the market and of that individual's work. And if you've gotten a chance to meet them or listen to them or talk to them, to kind of let them know on a personal level what kind of impact that they've had on you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think
about that. I'm sorry.
No, that was wonderful. I think going along with that, you have to going along with knowing that the agent or the editor that you are submitting to is knowing their name. Now, if you're submitting to somewhere and it doesn't specifically state who you're submitting to, then dear agent, dear editor is appropriate. But if you are submitting to a specific person, dear so-and-so is appropriate. But a thing that I've seen a lot of agents talk about is their name being spelled wrong in the query. Okay, guys, do your homework. Please don't be that person. Don't be that person. Not every agent is going to be turned off by that, but some are really going to be turned off by that, and they're going to assume that you're not going to be looking for the detail. That you're not going to be detail oriented. You're not going to be able to find mistakes. You're not going to be able to take directions well, and that's a big thing for. They want to make sure that you are not a pill to work with. Spell their name right, make it personable. But when you're writing a query, it's really important to make sure that the way that you're being personable matches the genre that you're writing in as well.
Yes.
So, for example, if you're writing a children's novel, like Wade likes to do, and you start in and your voice sounds really dark or really heavy or like an adult writer, it's going to be a mismatch. It's going to feel odd to the agent that you're submitting to. So make sure that your voice matches. Make sure that you know who you're submitting to. And then make sure you're personable, but not creepy.
Yes.
Just personable and flattering.
Yeah, and be professional. Don't go into it with the idea that when you're doing your query letter, you're writing to your best friend. You want to be personable, you want to make it look good, you want to connect, but you want to maintain that professionalism, because publishers, editors, agents, that's one of the things that they're looking for. They're looking to see if you are professional in how you are shopping around and you're trying to find a sale for your work. They don't want someone who is putting together a query that looks like a ninth grader did it as a school assignment. They want to see that professionalism. And I think that's one thing that is overlooked often.
Yeah. So I'm curious if either of you used comp titles in your query.
No.
You didn't.
I didn't hear you. What did you say?
Do you use comp titles in your queries?
Oh, comp titles. I have in the past. I don't always do it. It really depends on the project. If I'm doing something where I'm combining, maybe a couple different genres together, then I might say, oh, it's like this meets this, so I'm not opposed to doing comps. My agent likes doing comp. Like when she sends out things, she wants to know what comp title should we put in. So I think comp titles are common, but not necessary.
Mm-hmm. Good. I think that if you're going to go for comp titles, you need to know what you're doing. So with comp titles, you need to have titles that yes, they do well in the genre, but that they match your tone of voice and your storyline, and they match your story in some way. Don't just, like Wade said earlier, don't just go for the obvious. Okay, don't say this is the next big Harry Potter. It's probably not the next big Harry Potter, but if it is, congratulations. And I want to read it, send it to me. But it's probably not going to be the next big Harry Potter. And agents are tired of hearing that. The next Harry Potter, the next Lord of the Rings, the next, don't do that. It has to be a comp title that matches your genre, matches your voice, matches your storyline, matches something. And if you have one story that really matches the voice, and another story that really matches like general outline or general plot structure or something of your story, then you combine those two. Those are your comp titles. It's like the voice of so-and-so writer with the storyline of this, that sort of a thing.
Yeah.
So just be conscious if you're going to do it, because I feel like queries aren't necessary, but they can definitely be damaging. Yeah. The comp titles, excuse me, can definitely be damaging to your query if you don't choose them carefully.
Yes. I tend to feel that comp titles shouldn't be used in queries just because I've seen so many of them come across my desk. And it's, to me, it's like, okay, well, I want to know what the story is. Don't compare it to someone else's work. Show me exactly what your voice is, your story is. So that's why I don't use them.
Yeah. Well, and for anybody that's ever seen American Idol or America's Got Talent or Britain's Got Talent, you notice the ones that come out on stage and say, I'm the next big, and they name the biggest superstar out there. Those are usually the auditions that flop horribly.
Yes.
They're touting this big confidence that doesn't support their work. And so make sure, that's just the bottom line. Make sure that everything you put in the query really represents your quality of work.
Yes.
That's, I think, in a nutshell what it is.
Yeah.
So do we have anything else on queries, or you guys want to move on?
I think we can move on.
We can move on.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay. So the next one is the formatting. So you have a comment.
I do. And I've seen this so many times, and I've seen conversations on social media about formatting and what you need. And when you are looking to submit a manuscript to a publisher, the first thing that you should do, once you've got your package polished and ready to, is check with the requirements of the publisher, the editor, the agent, to see what format they want it in. Because I think that's one of the biggest killers. Because if an agent, for example, say an agent says, well, I want everything double spaced with 1.5 inch margins, and I want it at 12, size 12 times New Roman, and you send it in at size 10 Arial with, no indents, that shows them right then and there before they even read the first line that you can't follow directions. So formatting is an absolute must. It is something that is so incredibly vital to know what the person that you're submitting to wants and actually following those instructions. That's huge, because if you don't, you might as well not waste their time.
Yeah, there's not too much to add to what Patricia's saying, right? Like, that formatting can show like very instantly, you know, if you're on a professional track or if you're still in, you know, noviceville. And so it's a beginner's mistake that you don't want to make, and you certainly don't want to keep making it.
Yes.
And I think there's some avenues that are even more important than others. Obviously, you know, if a publisher has like a certain thing as like, this is how we want our format, and we want the name up here, you know, in the header. You know, I could see certain editors forgiving that mistake if it's something little and the book's great. But when I think of places that are trying to, you know, production companies that want to read a screenplay, that has a very particular format, and playwriting does as well. And so if you write something that doesn't look like it's in screenplay format at all, they won't look past page 1 on that. It's all about finding out, if you can, do some research and find out how do they want this formatted. And then that's a sign of respect and professionalism when you do your best to format it that way.
I agree. Yeah. Homework, doing the homework.
Yeah. Have you ever been in a math class and the teacher gives you this test? I will never forget this test. And it's impossible to solve these math equations. They are like college level math equations, and some of them, they are literally unsolvable. And the teacher gives you this on purpose because at the very end, you're struggling through, you're trying to figure it out, trying to whatever, you get to the very, very, very end, and it says, now you get a 0 on this exam, flip it over and read the instructions. And the instructions are, this is an unsolvable exam, put your pencil down and wait for the teacher. So they actually never intended for you to take the unsolvable math test. Have you guys ever had that before?
I've heard of it. Is that a true story for your? I've heard of that happening, and it hasn't happened to me personally.
Yeah, I got about 5 questions in personally before I was like, something's up here.
Yeah. I might have passed that test just because I'm so bad at math. I would have just put my pencil down and not tried.
And I passed. Yeah. Woo! Yeah, I got about 5 in, and then I realized something was up, and I went back to the instructions that I should have read in the first place, and realized that I was not following directions and set my pencil down. And so that one ends up being a participation grade. They're not going to screw your grade over that, but teachers give that as instruction for making sure that you're following the rules and listening for the directions. So agents aren't going to give you an unsolvable math test. They're just going to round file your stuff.
Yeah.
If you follow orders, you're a pain to work with, and garbage, friend, garbage.
Yeah. It doesn't even clear the slush pile. It goes from, oh, they didn't follow. Okay, oops, it goes into the garbage because they don't have the time to model collie authors who cannot follow directions or who are unwilling to follow them. And that's what it boils down to. It's a profession. It's a sense of respect and professionalism for their time. So I think, honestly, you have to approach it that way. It's mutually respect as well, because if you send in something that can't follow directions, then you're showing that you're not going to respect their time, their ability, etc. So for me, that's one of the big killers.
Yeah, it's definitely not respectful for you to not even look at the instructions in the first place. And to make someone's name in the query addressed to them and things like that, like, be respectful, you know. Yeah. And another thing that occurred a lot is when agents don't respond right away, or when they respond negatively or with constructive criticism, that people will come back at them and be aggressive or angry. So this is just like a side note, an extra little tidbit, but be professional in your writing, be professional in when you approach an agent later. Be professional even with your disappointments. Even if you're totally confused by a response to something, be professional. Really.
Yes. Bury the ego
Yeah.
underneath a ton of blankets and forget about it, because at the end of the day, you may get 100 no's before you get that first yes. So, don't go into it with that whole mindset of, I'm going to be the next big blockbuster, and just like I said, bury that ego and be respectful, because you know what, you may burn a bridge that you can't rebuild.
Right. Okay, so let's move on to the next one, which is the writing. What sort of problems do you guys see in the writing? And excuse me 1 minute, my computer's dying. Plug it in.
Oh no.
Technical difficulties, guys. We're good.
I like how you give us number 3, which is like the biggest one of all, and then you leave.
And then I
writing, like.
Okay, I did that.
How do you fix that?
Perfect answer, Wade. Expecting you to answer it all for us.
So what do you want? Like when you say the writing, you're like the writing itself.
We should probably be a little bit more specific, because that can actually cover a lot of things. But what I have here is spelling errors, grammar errors. Is English your second language? Then you're going to have to be conscientious. You're going to have to make sure you're on like Grammarly or another website that helps you make sure that you're putting things together. So, just basic things with the writing structure. If a query comes in or a manuscript comes in and the first page is one spelling error after another, or you have really irregular sentences, like your verbiage or your structure, or your people are like, I don't know what that means, or I've never heard it said that way, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Tense shifts, head hopping, point of view swaps mid-paragraph, mid-sentence. Those are big ones. This particular topic, we could probably do like a 5 hour because there's so much to it. And whether the writing itself is shallow, whether it's deep point of view, whether it's the characters themselves are 3-dimensional, relatable, the tone, if you have, if you're writing, say, a fantasy, but your tone is more horror or thriller, that really does throw things off, because then the reader's like, this doesn't make sense. This isn't what I wanted to read. So really understanding the process and what you're trying to communicate in your story is huge, I think. You don't want to use the wrong tone with your writing, specifically when you're trying to write in through a genre. And I've seen that before, where the genre is one thing, the story is based on one genre, but the tone, the voice is completely different, and they don't interconnect. There's no interconnection in them at all. Like horror and fantasy, they can go together, but you don't want to have a horror and a romance. They don't really play well together.
I think that so if we're just talking about like sentence structure, obviously you want to know at least some of the rules of grammar. You don't have to be perfect at it, but because some novelists have fragments and comma splices, and that's okay for the book that they're writing. So I think it's very important to be an active reader. I think that there might be a lot of beginning authors they've decided, what I'm going to do? I'm going to write a book for whatever reason. Maybe it's because they have a life story they want to tell. Maybe it's because they just like the idea of being an author, and maybe they don't really read that many books. And so, or maybe they're reading old-fashioned books and they're trying to write for modern editors, right? So I think it's important to be an active reader and to know what's out there, know your genre very well, and then really try to be honest with yourself so that if you're looking at chapter 1 of your book, is the writing is it comparable to the writing? It doesn't have to be the same style, but is it as evocative? Is it as entrancing as what we see on the bookshelves at bookstores?
Yep.
And so I think if you're going to be very, Patricia did very good, like the idea of putting away the ego is very important, because you want to be honest with yourself. Like if I type any 5 pages of garbage and I send it to my mom is my huge cheerleader, and she says, "Wow, like good guy, she's gonna find something to praise about that." And God bless her. I need that for my ego every once in a while. But to my wife or my kids, who are not necessarily instant fans, my wife will say, like, "Oh, you know what? I see what you're trying to do here, but there's a better way of doing it." And so you want to have people. If you can't tell you're writing yourself, if you don't know, like you're trying a different genre, it's like, I think this is good fantasy, but I'm not sure, because I've read some, but maybe not enough. Then you need to find the beta readers, even if it's just one chapter or whatever. But you want to find beta readers that are going to let you know, is the writing going in? Go back to grammar. You could have perfect sentence structure, but it's still boring, right? So it's really about making that, so all the Grammarly you can do might not help you. And you might write something. You guys know, going back to children's literature, you guys know Junie B. Jones?
Yeah.
Junie B. Jones has horrible grammar, right? It's first person. That narrator is mangling the English language, but she's telling a good story.
Yeah.
So does the writing tell a good story, or does it get in the way of telling a good story?
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of honest reflection, and sometimes it takes more than just you. It takes somebody else, a friend or a fellow writer or editor. And this is a good reason, maybe, if you're not getting yeses after if somebody says, "Hey, I like the query letter, send me the writing," and you don't hear back from them, then you might want to start thinking, try a freelance editor that's not too expensive, hopefully, and find out, like, okay, well, what's really going on with my writing? What do I need to do? So it obviously takes a lot of practice, but I think going back to reading material that the genre will help you.
Yes, I think to be a good writer, honestly, Wade, I agree 100%. You need to be a voracious reader, and it does it. You don't need to stick with one genre. I tend to read in a number of genres. I'm part of a critique group. It's wide variety of genres. Yes, it's all romance writers, but we cover probably 10 different genres. And so when you're reading through these, you really have to open your eyes and open your mind to these different genres and how they work. So I think to really be a good writer and have your writing reflect that, you need to be a good reader as well.
So I am going to only disagree with you guys slightly. So, and the only reason I do that is because I'm part of a lot of reading groups, and some of them have very poor writing skills. Very poor. So I don't disagree with you completely. So reading is a fantastic way to build our writing skills, but it's not the only way. And some people can read all day long and still not put a sentence together properly. And so when you're reading, it's important, obviously, to enjoy what you're doing, but also to be looking at what works.
Yeah.
Why does this work? What do I like about it? What pulls me into this story? There's a writer that writes in my specific religion, and she writes romance for people in my religion. So very, very niche writer. And she's very cliche. There's absolutely nothing she says that hasn't been said 100,000 times before, but she is so clever. She's so funny that I laugh the entire book. I know in the very beginning what's going to happen in the end. I'm not surprised. It's one of those, the fluff books that you go to just because you really enjoy it. It's one of those, but I read it because I love her humor. And so when I read her books, what I'm looking for is what did she do for humor? In what way was she witty? Where did she weave it in? What did she do that impressed me so much that I keep coming back to it?
Yeah.
So I think that if you're going to read, it's really important to put your investigator hat on, be a little Sherlock Holmes and look and see what it is that's pulling you.
Yes, yes. And I think you can learn, as a writer, you can learn quite a bit by dismantling the thought processes of other authors and learning from their thought processes as you're reading through the book. I'm not necessarily, I'm not advocating plagiarism or anything like that. I'm just saying, as you go through, you can go, oh, well, this is a really great way to do this. I really like how they communicated this aspect, or this makes sense, or that doesn't make sense to me, but I like how they did it, so that you can apply that skill set, that uniqueness to your own writing, and make it a part of your skill set when you're developing your writing.
Absolutely. One thing that Brandon Sanderson says that I love is that he's a huge science fiction, or not science fiction, he's a fantasy writer, for those of you who don't know him. He said that every new book that he writes, he has a pet project he's working on, something in his writing that he wants to get better at. Yeah. And I thought that was really pretty fantastic. So he's actually actively learning. He's forever a student of writing. And I think that's a really great way of looking at it, because all of us have typing errors sometimes. All of us have plot holes sometimes. All of us didn't realize that it came across this way when you meant it that way, stuff like that.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, let's go on to number 4. Plot thickens. Okay, so what kind of problems do you guys see with plots?
Plot holes, where it's a very weak plot. They have a really good idea. They just haven't, there's no follow through on the plot. So, in the romance genre, there are certain requirements. Like, you have to make sure that you've got the happily ever after or happily for now at the end of your book, but you also have the breakup in the book. And there's certain aspects of that particular genre that you have to make it fit into that genre. So when you're writing a book in that genre and you're missing an aspect of that, where, for example, you kill off the hero before the end of the book, but it's supposed to be a romance, that's a huge plot hole. That's a huge boo-boo. So really, understanding your genre, understanding and having that idea of what it is that you're trying to convey. I don't know how you guys write. I'm going to be honest. I'm a pantser. I get an idea. I'll sit down and I'll write the first 3-4 chapters out in notes to plot it out. And then I give up and it's just let it go where it's going to go. But having an idea of, the start, the middle, and the end is important, whether you're a plotter, a pantser, a combination, because if you miss certain points in your plot, you're going to leave holes, and that can be very jarring for the reader, and it pulls them out of the book. And a lot of time you'll find that they just don't finish the book, and then they don't come and buy the next book for the next book for the next book, and then you're left wondering why they're not doing it right.
Yeah, it's interesting, and some genres, like romance genres and a lot of fantasy genres, there's an arc that people are expecting, and if you defy that, they might lose trust in you.
Yes.
But what's interesting is that if you know what plot should be and you actively defy them, that could sometimes be a good thing if you know that you're shaking things up. Yeah. But romance is interesting because depending on what the cover is, right? If the cover is like the bodice ripping, it's like, if you're reading that and then halfway through it's like, oh wow, the hero, who I thought was the hero, he died, and now this is turned into a strange socio-economical exploration of ancient Ireland. we're focused on these peasants that are in a loveless marriage, that would really, upset a lot of people. I would have a blast with that. That's why. Have you read Wuthering Heights?
Yes.
Right? She dies halfway through, and you're like, what are we gonna do now? She's dead. So anyway, so if we have something that goes against it, I think it's important to know. It's about going back to readership. You want to know what it's like. Okay, if I'm going to defy the typical plot outline, there should be a reason why I'm doing that.
Yes.
But I think when I teach creative writing, and I have a lot of students that they want to write a novel, so they show me their first chapters. A lot of times, they are not beginning the book at the right chapter. Usually it's actually chapter 3 where they should start, because there's a lot of, again, we're kind of talking more to the sort of the newer, not like, I'm kind of talking to people that maybe you haven't written a novel yet and you're trying to, or you've written one or two half attempt novels and you don't know why you're finishing it. So if in most cases, again, you can defy me and go ahead and do this, but in most cases, if you decide to have the book start off with like, main character gets up, goes through his or her day, looks in the mirror, describes him or herself, so a lot of new novelists think like, well, to establish my character, I got to show my character's whole day before something interesting happens. And I'm much more interested in meeting the character while there's something that's already going on. And I like looking at the film The Wizard of Oz to talk about story and structure. When The Wizard of Oz goes on, there's part of her day in regular Kansas, in the black and white world of Kansas for Dorothy. But we don't just see her wake up in the morning. The first shot of The Wizard of Oz, Dorothy is running down the Kansas road to her farm, and she's freaking out. She's worried about the well-being of her dog. This neighbor lady has threatened to take her dog away because Toto snapped at this Mrs. Mean Gulch, and now none of her family is paying attention to her. So we start with conflict. That conflict seemingly doesn't have anything to do with witches and scarecrows and things like that, but we see her upset, and we get to see the dynamic quickly of her family relationship. So find the right place. Now, maybe with whoever was writing the screenplay for The Wizard of Oz, I haven't read the book in a long time. I think it starts the same way. But maybe whoever, Frank Baum or whoever was doing the screenplay, maybe they originally thought like, okay, day one, she wakes up, she goes to visit Mrs. Gulch, and then something happens with the dog, and then she runs down the road. So maybe they wrote that draft, and then they made the smart choice of like, you know what? Cut this. We don't need this. We don't need this as the beginning. So find the right beginning, and then once you know what the conflict is, don't lay off. Keep that conflict going. Which is funny, because going back to the romance genre, is that when somebody's reading a romance book, they know what they're getting into. And other genres, mysteries and stuff like that. But romance book is fun to look at because you want these two people to be together, right? You're rooting as a reader, you're rooting for these two people to be together. But if as an author you decided, you know what, on chapter 4, I'm going to give the readers what they want. These two people get together and they spend the next 18 chapters just going smooching the whole time. Nothing bad happens. They go on vacation. They meet their parents. People don't want to read that. They're like, no, keep them apart. Don't let them get together.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind that we readers want our beloved characters to go through heck. Right? We want them to be in agony because we want the happy ending to be well deserved. So to give them the happy ending or the tragedy, right? We need to make them go through a lot of turmoil. So keep your foot on the gas pedal when it comes to conflict. Then your plot will be interesting.
Yes. Your characters need to go through the ringer. The more pain and suffering and torment and torture you put them through, the more the ending is so much sweeter. There's so much more reward to that happily ever after, or happy for now, or whatever. And you can do, there are certain ways that you can do the arcs for genres, like the romance genre, where you can play with it. You can do the unexpected and still meet the requirements. A prime example, and I know you're not supposed to do this in romance books, but I killed both main characters off in one book. Literally, I killed them off, like dead. and my editor said, she's like, is this the end of the book? I'm like, no, just keep going, because there were still 2 or 3 more chapters. And so they're both dead. Next chapter, oh, they're at the house. What's going on? And it was the way that I did it. They still got their happily ever after, but they're just
It became paranormal.
It is a it's actually a paranormal romantic suspense.
Gotcha.
There's no shapeshifters or anything like that. It's just deals with ghosts. But I had so much fun with it because I was thinking, how can I play with this arc? How can I twist this around to meet what I see where this story should be going? So I think you have to give yourself room to play, but still within the genre requirements is the point I guess I'm trying to make. So if you go into it thinking you're going to do it very systematic, very formulaic, A plus A plus B plus C equals D, you're going to find that it's pretty boring too. And I think that's something that readers look for. I mean, I've read some books and they're by the same author, and by the third one it's like, okay, I'm reading the same book over again. It's just different setting, just different character names, but it's the exact same story. So playing around with it, I think is a good way to really spice up that plot and really reinvigorate it.
Yeah,
I think that's very good advice, especially Patricia's. The word play is a good way of looking at it, because we're playing pretend.
Yeah.
And the reader's playing along with us. And so there's got to be, even if we're reading a tragedy, there's some level of play with what we're writing and what the reader hopefully is experiencing.
Yeah.
You better go to number 5, because I told my wife I'd be done at 2 o'clock.
Okay, let's move on to the next one then. Okay, so the next one is POV, and I know, Patricia, you had already touched on this a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and start this one off, though. With POV, which stands for just which perspective, which viewpoint. So the character, whose head are you in, and who do you follow? It's really important to make sure that if you have multiple points of view, that you're breaking it up in logical places. So you're breaking it up by chapter, or you're breaking it up by scene, or things like that. It's called head hopping, when you jump from one character to the next, and your reader can't follow that. It has to have natural breaks, so your reader can take a breath and say, oh, okay, now we're moving on to this other point of view.
Yeah, I would agree. And you can do a chapter where you have multiple points of view. You can even do a scene that has multiple points of view if you do it the right way. If you follow the natural breaks, the natural line sequence, the natural sequence, you can certainly do that. You don't want to be doing multiple points of view in the same paragraph or the same sentence, which is a little awkward. But I think it also depends on whether you're writing in third person, whether you're writing in first person, whether you're writing as omnipresent, those can impact your point of view. First person, you only have one person's point of view throughout the book because you are that character. So point of view it's actually, to me, I think it would be trickier to stay on one person's point of view in first person, simply because we're so inclined to want to show the scene from this character's point of view and that one, so that we kind of get more connection with multiple characters. So for me, I think this person would probably be the hardest to maintain your point of view.
Yeah, I think point of view depends on genre, and depends on what tense you write in, and depends on what person you write in. So first, second, or third. I have heard of people writing multiple points of view with first person. I've never seen it myself, but I've heard that it exists. You know, but it would be extremely difficult to show that these are distinct characters if it's a first-person point of view. So, you know, I would caution that if you are using multiple points of view, to make sure that those characters are sounding distinct and that they each have distinct voices in your head. Yeah, I'm not asking if you're crazy, but just that that character interacts, that it's really distinct from the other ones, and then to make sure that that's coming across in your writing.
Yeah, I would agree.
I think that well, this might be controversial advice, but going back to when we were talking about the writing, if the writing is something where it's like, let's say that you're looking at your own writing and you decide, like, you know what, I'm not as good. You know, Wade said, be as good as you can and try to be as good as the published authors on the bookshelf. But I don't want anybody to feel like they should stop writing just because they have like a low self-esteem. The first person point of view might be a great way for you to write something that is wonderful, even if the well, let me look at it this way. When I'm reading science fiction and fantasy books, I'm usually expecting a third person, maybe third person omniscient or third person limited to somebody. And I'm expecting that, wow, you're going to tell me all about this world, and I'm going to get lots of vivid descriptions and all that kind of thing. Now, it's very easy for an editor to tell quickly if you're trying to describe the world and the editor can't visualize this world. It's very easy with the third person for the editor to go like, I can't, what is he talking about? I don't know what he or she is talking about. This world doesn't make any sense to me. I don't understand these descriptions. I have a headache reading about this world. No, you haven't brought it to life. So the third person, if you're trying to world build, you want to make sure that you can do that as a writer, that you've got a level of eloquence and descriptive writing imagery ability that you can pull that off. Now, something like The Hunger Games, which is a well-written book, I'm not saying it's not well-written, but something like The Hunger Games is written in first-person, present tense. Katniss Everdeen is taking us through this world of the 13th District, and because she's like this no-nonsense protagonist that's not very creative, that, you know, in terms of like poetry and stuff like that, she's creative and solving problems. So she's not very creative. She's not very descriptive. We only get little bits and pieces of what this world looks like, but we still get to experience it. And we, the reader, we do most of the work visualizing that world.
Yeah.
And it's all because we still believe her story. We're still connected with her. So you obviously still need to be a good writer at some level, but the first person point of view can be a window for writers. There's like, I don't know how to make a big whole huge world. I don't know how to use those words. Like, okay, give us a first-person narrator that also has that same kind of limitation. So, obviously, ideally, we're all, you know, Henry Melville level of writers, or fill in the blank with your favorite author. Melville's not one of mine. I don't know why I pulled that one out. But, you know, we're all like the best kind of author, but maybe we're not. And so point of view can be a way where we give ourselves wiggle room.
Yeah.
I find that, now that I've kind of said that, I find that my writing is actually better when it's third person limited to one character, because kind of when I write first person, I start to get into the internal monologue, and I waste too much time. Yeah. Because that's what I'm doing. You know, when I start writing first person, I think that I give myself permission to, like, I'm just going to write like me. And this is me on this adventure. And I overthink things way too much, and I'm an idiot. And I babble on like I'm doing now. And nobody wants to read that. So when I assume the role of a third-person narrator, I sort of like, well, here I am, a young Tolkien/Stephen King, and I'm going to do my best to tell a really compelling story. And sometimes we'll know what this character's thinking, but most of the time it's the narrator showing the story.
Yeah.
So I would add to that with fantasy, that it's becoming trendy, very popular right now to write in present tense, first person limited. So Well, we all know how Wade feels about this. But it is becoming popular. Throne of Glass and Hunger Games and a few other really, really popular works have been bringing this more to the forefront. And so there are some authors that is their strong preference, and it's making.
And there's I go whenever I hear the word trend, maybe that's why I shivered a little bit. Is it because you should obviously do what is working best for the book. Do what's best for the book first, and if it happens to be a trend that you get to write on, that's great. The thing about the slowness of the writing world is that if you say, back when Twilight was popular, a whole bunch of people wrote Twilight style vampire or werewolf, romances. So that editors were like, I'm so sick of reading this. So don't ever. My advice is don't ever write anything or a point of view because you think, hey, this is trendy now. Do something that you think really serves the story. I like what you said about Brandon Sanderson's, right? That he chooses a pet project, right? I like that. Hey, you know what I've never done? I've never written a person present tense narrative. I'm going to try that and see what happens. I like that idea rather than following the trend.
Yeah. So confession for me is I actually write in different ways depending on what I'm writing. So my poetry is in first person and my novels are in third person. And for some reason, I'm kind of locked into those two different genres. And it's just very interesting to me, but that developed over a long period of time. So I would encourage everybody who doesn't know what their voice is or doesn't know how many points of view they want to include in their story, or whether they want it to be limited or unlimited, whether they want it to be third person, first person, play.
Yes.
And as you start writing different things, like flash fiction is actually the best way to do that because you have this much space to include this much information. And so what you do is you really hone your craft in those moments. If you're, taking that same mantra that you have a goal in mind, a pet project that you're working on, and you write that flash fiction, saying, well, do I love this third person limited? I'm going to write this other story in first person limited. Which one felt better for me? Which one was easier? Which one felt natural? Which one, whatever. Play with it. Write tiny little stories until you really know your voice and what works for you. And for me, I write poetry in first person, and Wade said, you said it doesn't matter if you're writing someone else, your own self bleeds into the character in first person. I don't have that issue with first person. I don't. So I write poetry that's centered around psychology and trauma and things like that. And so I write a lot of personal things as well as other people's experiences, and I've never had an issue with it. But I know that about myself because I've gone through the process of trying it out, of playing with it, of making a goal and can I achieve this? Can I write it like this? Can I make it look like that? I love that this person uses this type of sentence structure. I'm going to try it and see. So with your writing, just have fun. That's the most important thing. Have fun, and it will come across in your writing. It will come across in your queries. It will come across in everything that you do if you love what you do.
Yeah. So I did see a question here, and I know we had talked to Kammi about maybe doing another one of these to kind of dig a little bit deeper. But what about deep point of view? That I know that's a whole different ball game. But when we're writing, how can we incorporate that in keeping that in mind when we're querying too, when we're trying to shop around, how much do we focus on, if we're looking at first person, third person, more second person, whatever, how much do we consider how important that is, or do we consider that to be?
I think that the most important thing is the pacing of the story.
Yeah.
I think that different stories lend themselves to different points of view and different structures, and different genres have different expectations. And so I think if you are using the five senses without actually using the word of the five senses, so it's not I saw this, but actually describe what this is, and use terms that instantly other people can connect with, it's going to make your world come alive, and it's going to make your pacing feel like it's pacing appropriately. But I think it really depends on what you're working on, whether you go deep point of view. But as long as you are using those five senses, you technically are going deep point of view. That really is the simple answer. If you think about a donut and you close your eyes and you can picture this donut and you go to take a bite of it, and what happens is a lemon squirts in your mouth. If you can picture that, see, I'm already salivating, because those terms have such a strong memory. And so you want to capitalize on that in your writing, and that's really going to maximize what the reader experiences of your world. And so use those concrete, everyday terms, those things that really connect with other people, and then it won't matter. The technicality of whether you're considering yourself deep point of view or not won't matter, because your reader will be experiencing it along with you. So that's my answer for that.
That's good. My deep point of view is my wife's point of view that I should have finished up 5 minutes ago, so I better go.
Sorry, wife.
It was great meeting you guys digitally, online, and I'm going to keep following your channels. And if you guys want to keep talking, please continue to do so. But I better log off now. So thanks for having me as a guest, Kammi.
It was great
so
to meet you.
For joining us. I really appreciate it.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Patricia, did you have any last comments for people before we head out?
Honestly, when you start writing and you're starting to think about querying to an agent, editor, publisher, my best advice is make sure before you do that you have had a beta reader or a critique partner, someone that you trust, to give you critical, honest feedback. Go through your manuscript so it's as polished as you possibly can make it. Do not give up. Like I say, you might get 100 rejections before you get that first yes. Take each rejection as a step forward and have fun. Engage with your characters. Really bring yourself into that story that you're telling, and just experience it, because you know what, your readers want to experience it. So if you're experiencing it, your readers are going to experience it too. So that would be my best bet, my best advice.
Thank you. Yeah, I would say, oh my gosh, my mind just went blank. That's what I get for being live. Gotta love the things that happen live. So I would say, what were we talking about? We were talking about last minute, and you said to have fun with it. Oh yes, I was going to go ahead with feedback. I would say with feedback, please try not to take feedback harshly. Like, try not to take it as a personal offense. Even if some people give it rudely, you can still learn and grow from that feedback. And so you have a choice about how you respond. And so I actually trained to be a sign language interpreter. And one of the things they taught us in the training is to how to take feedback, essentially. And what you do is you just leave it alone for a few days or a week. So somebody gives you feedback, it feels harsh, walk away. Don't change anything. Don't ask your mother and your brother and your best friend and your critique partner. And leave it alone. Walk away. Come back to it a couple days later, a couple weeks later, something. And what happens is it's kind of like when you're eating and you have those things that freshen your palate. It essentially freshens your palate or your eyes in this case. And it allows you to see it through new, fresh eyes and see it more like what the reader was seeing and reading and experiencing when they read it and gave that feedback. And so maybe the feedback is bad. Maybe somebody is being harsh or cruel. Maybe they just didn't see your vision. Maybe they didn't see your vision because of something you did in your writing. So the feedback itself doesn't work, but you know now what to tweak and to change in order to make it fit. And so I would say with feedback, just don't take it personally if you get no's or if you get constructive criticism or different things like that, because it doesn't mean you're a horrible writer. It means that there is something left to change and to tweak and to learn. And you know what? Honestly, some feedback you're going to take and you're going to be grateful for it. Some feedback you're going to take and you're going to take it grudgingly because you're mad that they said something in the first place. And some feedback you're just going to leave it because it doesn't. You know it doesn't match. You know, I've had bad beta readers, I've had bad critique partners, and honestly, sometimes the advice is just bad. And if it's one person, so this is how it fits into queries. If it's one person that comes back to you and says, "Hi, the pacing was too slow. I don't like the pacing," but no one else that you've sent queries to has mentioned pacing. They mentioned something else. But there's a consistency in these agents. They all say there's something else, but this one says pacing. Then leave the pacing alone. Focus on the one where you're getting feedback from multiple places. That's more likely going to be a mainstream issue instead of someone's personal issue.
Yes.
So you leave it alone, take your time, take a breath. You come back to it, you're less offended, you're more objective, and you'll be able to see whether that's feedback that you can incorporate or not.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's spot on. You know, we as human beings, we are so inclined to take offense when we perceive a personal attack, and feedback is not necessarily a personal attack. It is an opinion. And yes, it can be very beneficial, but I think that we need to just remember that it is an opinion, and that unless we are consistently getting the same thing, you know, I mean, if you have 10 people reading and 8 are telling you, oh, this character is flat, and 2 are telling you, oh, the pacing is wrong or the setting didn't make sense, you focus on the character build, you know, the character growth, because that's where the issue is that the most is the most people are going to see. So I think you're spot on, Kammi. It's just very good advice.
Thank you. Thank you. So why don't you go ahead and check the comments and see about who's been interacting.
All righty. Well, we got a lot of comments today, some really great ones.
I have not even been in the chat, you guys. Okay. Wow. So many comments. I love it. Wow. I've been changing the banners on the screen and I can't see both at the same time. Oh my goodness. I'm so excited to read through these.
Oh, I'm kind of kind of falling behind here. Well, there is so many comments here. So maybe what I'll do is I'll give you guys give myself a chance to go through them, and then announce the winner of the cover on Facebook. Kammi, do we have a group or something that we can post in, or can I just post it wherever?
Yeah, you can post it on Flash University on Facebook, and we'll go ahead and announce the winner on there.
Perfect. And then I have, as I said, I've got 5 different templates for ads. So I will put those up, and then anyone who's interested can grab them. They are completely customizable. You can put your text in, etc. If you are not proficient at graphic design, you can also shoot me a direct message on Facebook, and I will be happy to insert your cover and put the information in free of charge and get that ad back to you.
That is fantastic. I am so excited that you are willing to share those wonderful resources with us. That's so great.
You're welcome.
Don't forget, you guys, that on my website for the next about 30 minutes, I have a freebie on there for you guys about the 17 common reasons why manuscripts are rejected. Again, we only covered 5 in here for lack of time. And then also, for those of you that are here, go ahead and comment below if you would like a video on Deep Point of View. I know we had a question about that. And so if that's something that you want a resource or a video on, just go ahead and comment and say, yes, I'd love to see more about what Deep Point of View looks like, what it is, how to do it, how to apply it to different genres, whatever it is that is specifically your question. let us know. And I think Patricia and I are going to do this again, and we will dive deep into a few more fun topics in the future. So thank you all so much for joining us. I am so excited that you came, and I can't wait to read your comments. So thank you.
Yes, thank you so very much for having me, Kammi. I appreciate the invite. Thank you to everyone who came today. That was absolutely amazing. And I am still reading through comments.
Yay!
Awesome. Thanks again.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye, everyone.